What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York. We are finally back in the St. Vitus basement. We miss this place ever so dearly, and we got a new couch to compliment. And today we are here with Mike of SOM. Thanks so much for being here today, man. It's great to have you here.
It feels great to be here.
Yeah, it feels great to have you here. Paul Bearer killed it last night with a great lineup. It's great to see you guys opening the show as well.
Yeah, it's awesome. I was just saying, it feels like a warm embrace to just be back in this venue after the last year. 2 years almost.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, you've come here with your other projects before, right?
SOM has played here 2 times before. Junius has played here multiple times over the years, and then Caspian's played here multiple times over the years. Yeah, so this is it almost feels like a second home to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's good to be back here.
This is my second home. I've slept on this couch.
Yeah, right.
But
yeah.
Thank you for giving us some new music this year. You had your EP Awake come out back in the spring of this year.
Yeah.
Being that this is an EP, is this intended to be kind of maybe a preview or a trailer of what a full-length follow-up to the fall will be? Or
For sure. Yeah. So, give a little backstory. The first album was recorded and written and recorded by Will, Justin, and Duncan. It was done as a 3-piece a few years back. Joel and I joined the band after that. We're both coming from Junius and Drift Off. We've all of us have known each other for probably the better part of 2 decades, and all of our bands have toured with each other, and we've played in various configurations. Justin was a touring drummer in Junius for many years. We've all Will has produced most of the Junius material. We all have go back a very long time. So this was very much old friends kind of getting together. When SOM was starting to tour at the end of 2019, right before the pandemic, Joel and I joined the band to kind of fill out the live show. And then we all started playing together. We did a tour at the end of 2019 with Defeater and with Oh Brother, some other good friends of ours, Holy Fawn. We just realized this works, this clicks, let's do this as a 5-piece, this is the band. It felt awesome, and we immediately started writing music together. And we were kind of getting ready to do a full-length last spring, and then of course the world fucking went to shit for a minute, or, well, arguably still is.
I wouldn't exactly say
come back.
A minute.
Right. But, yeah, so our plan was to record an album last spring, and then we thought, well, we couldn't even get together. So we figured out how to essentially record an album remotely, and we recorded the 2 songs that are on the EP, and then we had some friends come and do some remixes, and that became the Awake EP. And we decided to kind of hold off on doing the entire album until we could actually get together again, and things started coming back together. And so now we're releasing a new album in January. So that's been now done, and it's coming out. Then we'll be playing a few new songs tonight. So we're kind of just starting the process of getting rolling that out.
When it came to the formation of SOM, was the intention to maybe combine your other projects into one sort of hybrid, or were you all trying to explore territory that you wouldn't explore in Caspian and Junius and so on?
I think I can't speak for Will, Duncan, and Justin in their intention in the initial album of the fall and the initial formation of the band, but I think it was to do something a little bit different that Constance and Caspian, our other bands weren't kind of doing, and I think that it is somewhat unique. And now that this has kind of become, for at least a few of us, our main focus. I feel like it kind of started as more of a side project, and now it's become more of a main focus. I think we're all there's a sort of alchemy that's occurring between the 5 of us, as we all are bringing so many different things to the table, all of our influences, and I think it's become something different. And where I was kind of going before with us coming together and Joel and I joining the band, I think the entire dynamic changed as we brought our influences and our ingredients into it, and then now we have 3 guitars, and it's a whole thing. So as soon as we started writing music together, there's just a whole different dynamic, and it's kind of, I'm proud of what we're doing, and I think it's kind of unique, and it exists. There's little things that I'm sure, to anyone who knows our other bands, will pick up on, little things that probably sound familiar to them, or whatever in some capacity. But I think it's also something, we're kind of in uncharted territory for us as musicians, and it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I've noticed. I mean, just the Awake EP alone, like, even though it's like 2 songs, like, I was able to hear so much incorporated in there. I see elements, and this is my interpretation, but I see, like, elements of, like, shoegaze, some prog, some doom. Like, I could see people, you're playing with Paul Bearer tonight, Match Made in Heaven.
Yeah,
but I could
totally.
easily see Som do a tour with, like, a Steven Wilson or a Porcupine Tree or something like that. In a way, like, I think it has, like, that sort of hodgepodge. So it's almost like experimenting, almost like an essential part or just a natural part of the songwriting process.
It's something that we talk about and kind of joke about, that, like, a lot of the intention of SOM in general was to kind of make, like, heavy pop music, like, and, some of the, like, music writers have also called it, like, doom pop. Like, it's heavy music, but, like, mostly with, like, generally following pop music structures and kind of, like, keeping it relatively simple. And we always kind of joke that it's like, this is our version of trying to make pop, but it still somehow comes out probably way weirder and way, like, more complex than we even think, because that's, I guess, just in our DNA. Like, even when we're trying to dumb things down and make things sort of, like, as simple and sort of, like, universally accessible, I kind of hate using that word, but, like, we're not trying to make music that challenges anybody.
Yeah.
But I think there's something about, like, just how we all operate that it's just in our nature to kind of make things a little bit, weirder, and our instincts, get kind of weird. So I think some of that stuff that you mentioned, like, maybe that feels proggy or whatever, is just sort of, we can't help it. Like, it just sort of comes out, like, we just have, it's in our instinct to make some, like, make this part a little bit weird, or let's do a little extra thing here or whatever. And,
I think having, like, that pop format, but still being doomy, I think is a great thing, because I think a lot of people, and this is just a theory, but I think some people would be afraid to touch a band like, Yob or Opeth or something like that, because they could be intimidated by, like, the long song lengths. So, but I think your music, being a little more, I have nothing problem with a long.
Love those bands,
and the Bell Witch hour-and-a-half long song.
Right,
Can't go
right.
wrong with that. But, like, I think maybe, like, this is also a good gateway drug into getting people into that more avant-garde or more underground stuff as well.
Sure, yeah. And if that happens, that's awesome too. I mean, I wouldn't even say that that's, like, our intention. It's literally just, like, kind of what we do instinctually,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Is it almost kind of like a preconceived? Was this always, like, the preconceived idea of what you wanted SOM to sound like, or was there a lot of exploration, a lot of trial and error involved?
I would say that I think Will and Duncan and Justin had a certain vision, and I think there's a lot of things that I had in my head over the years, like, doing Junius and being doing that for, like, 12, 13 years. There's we kind of had our own sound and did our thing, and Joel and I were doing that for a very long time. And then there was a little while where we kind of, after we left Junius, or around the time that we were leaving Junius, we started this other band called Drift Off, which was pretty much like this very, like, kind of angular post-hardcore kind of stuff. And it was, there was a little while where, like, after doing that for, like, 12, 13 years and being immersed in this sort of, like, kind of post-rock and post-metal sort of world, not even intentionally, but kind of being part of that, where, like, I literally didn't want to look at a delay pedal or, like, anything for, like, at all. Like, I just wanted to do, like, I stripped my pedal board, and I was just like, I'm having, like, a distortion pedal, and, like, I just wanted to, like, not do any of that for a while. And we kind of did that and explored that with Drift Off, and it was, and I'm sure it still sounds weirder and spacier and, like, whatever than what we even thought it was intended to be. But we kind of did this thing. We sort of did that for a while because I needed to, like, get out of that headspace. And now coming back to this feels actually like a familiar return to, like, now I have, like, some delay pedals back on my board. And I'm kind of like, oh yeah, like, this is something I kind of, like, took it for granted, like, this more, like, post-rock. And not, I hate using, I don't know, I don't like using the word post-rock actually. But
I don't even know what that means.
I don't even know either.
Yeah.
But when I think of post-rock, I think of, like, bands like Tortoise and, like, Sigur Rós and stuff like that, and it's taken its own, like, sort of turn.
That term makes me sad, because, like, post-rock, I don't want rock to die.
Right.
So
yeah, there shouldn't be anything after rock.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know, dude. I guess where I'm going with this is just, like, this has been a familiar sort of return, at least for me, to kind of return to something that I feel like I did for a long time, and I kind of stepped away from for a while, and it's been kind of nice to return to that and feel like, oh yeah, like there was a lot of unmined territory and things that I felt like I wanted to do that I didn't do or didn't get to do. Didn't get to see through to the fullest extent, in Junius, and I think we're kind of getting to explore some of that stuff now, and it feels good to, like, after taking a little step away from doing that style of music, to coming back and trying new things. I mean, like, I'm an old dude. Like, we've all been doing this for a long time, and I think it's actually been kind of exciting to, like, try new stuff, and, like, I'm challenging myself with every song that, like, to try new things as a musician and as, like, a guitarist. Like, it's kind of cool to, like, come back to it with a different mindset after stepping away for a little while and actually finding that, there's actually ways that you can actually surprise yourself, and there's still room for magic to happen,
Definitely. So. And that led me perfectly into my final question, because, like, having, between Junius and your post-hardcore band, would you
Drift Off,
yeah. And now with SOM, for you personally, is it almost like using your instrumentation and expressing different sides of who you are? Because Drift Off, from what you're telling me, it has a punk rock, hardcore sort of sound behind it, like, and then, I feel like SOM, that EP was leaving me mesmerized in a way.
Cool,
so, like, and I love hardcore, but I wouldn't exactly, it's not a chill out
right.
music. So, like, do you almost feel like you're expressing different sides of maybe your personality or even your life in general?
I mean, I think all of this stuff has definitely been representative of where all of us individually and collectively were at the time, and I think, like, the Drift Off stuff was as angular and sort of aggressive as it was because it represented the time, like, that we were in our lives, and that we were in, like, on a larger political level, and I think that was represented in the music. And I think something that we're conscious of now, when we wrote this album and we're working on this, is that it's really in our DNA to make heavy, like, I guess, like, distorted, aggressive music. Like, we're not going to not do that. But we also want to make music that's sort of pretty and, like, has some sort of feeling of taking people somewhere, and that has an element of transcendence and, feels bigger than it is. And, like, I don't, some of my favorite bands of all time, like, are bands that are fucking dark and depressing, like, on the surface, like, stuff that you almost want to slit your wrist to, but it's like, it makes you feel better, and it uplifts you, and it transcends you, and it takes you somewhere. And I feel like, that's sort of what we are trying to capture and try to do with this, because I don't really want to make music that's just feeding into the existing, like, toxicity of our current, like, social political climate. Like, all of us, I think, we all kind of, like, literally had multiple conversations about, like, where does this, like, where do we fit into this, and how do we want to, like, contribute to, like, all the negativity that's already exists around us by adding more aggression and anger into that? It's like,
well, I think addressing anger and negativity isn't the same thing as condoning it, or
right? Yeah, it's true, and sometimes responding to it with more, like, aggressiveness can be cathartic and can be good, but at least for where I think all of us were, we wanted to make music that sort of feels a little bit more ephemeral and ethereal, and while still being heavy and still being sort of cathartic and aggressive in a different way. And I feel like we're achieving that, and I think that's something that, like, it's not like we sat down and mapped it out, like, oh, this is how we do it. It just was, like, setting an intention, and then sort of, like, once we sort of all, like, agreed that we're, like, this is sort of what we want to create, everything else sort of, like, follows along. Like, it just subconsciously informs what you do, like, we're all kind of moving toward a similar goal. And I think the album that we're going to be putting out in a couple of months, that'll be released soon, will, I think, show that, and the Wake EP was kind of the beginning of that, like, us kind of finding that and finding this sort of sound and what we can kind of do. So yeah, and we're excited to do that tonight in front of an audience, which hasn't happened in literally 2 years.
Yeah, I know. I'm witnessing musical history tonight. I can't wait.
It feels awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for bringing us music tonight. Great first interview back at the St. Vitus basement.
Dude,
we miss this place so much.
I miss the smell. I didn't
Yeah.
know that I missed the smell, but I miss the
And I
smell.
could finally do an interview on a couch down here without worrying about getting hepatitis.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
is there just anything else with SOM you'd like to promote? You said the new album's coming out in January. Any shows coming up you'd like to plug or anything else?
I mean, we're touring Europe in January and February with Catatonia and Solstafir, which are both bands that are wonderful. Like our old bands have toured with them before, and we consider them like musical brothers and allies.
First time I saw Catatonia was the Caspian.
Oh, sick!
Yeah.
At Irving.
Yeah, Irving Plaza.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I was at that show too. Yeah, they're phenomenal people and amazing band. So we're excited about that. We'll have a new song coming out that might be out by the time, I don't know when this is being released.
By
But
midnight tonight.
oh, okay. Well, like next week we'll have a new song coming out with a video that we're very excited about, and we have a few videos. We've been fortunate to work with some amazing. I work in like film and television production, and this is like a slight little tangent here, but like I've spent many years working like alongside of my musical career, like working in that world, and those are two things that I've never really brought together until now in this capacity. And it's been kind of awesome to bring together like some of the relationships and some of the friendships, people that I work with, like directors and people in that world, to make our videos. And we're finally kind of like bridging that in a really cool way, and I'm actually really excited about some of the videos that we have coming out and some of the art that we're making now with some really amazing people and friends and collaborators. So that's a really cool thing, and we'll be rolling some of that stuff out over the next couple months. So it's kind of cool. You know, like the last 2 years, we're like, well, we can't tour, we can't play shows, so it forced us to kind of think a little bit more creatively and, you know, find other shit to do and like be like, all right, well, where can we pour our energy into? And, you know, was making this EP and collaborating on these remixes with friends and making videos and doing stuff that we could do remotely, and it's actually been really cool, and a lot of that stuff probably wouldn't have happened otherwise. So in a weird way, I'm, you know, sort of grateful for that, in spite of all the other, you know, negativity of the last couple of years. But like, there's been good things that have come out of it, and that have now changed the way we operate in a positive way. So I think that's cool too.
The harsh truth of life.
Right.
When times are at their worst, art is at its best.
There you go.
So
exactly.
We're looking forward to hearing it. But
Thanks.
thank you so much, everybody. We are here
Absolute pleasure.
with Mike of SOM. New stuff coming very soon. And check out the Awake EP. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York. We are back, man.
Thank you.